let's focus on electricity in Nigeria. The Enugu State Electricity Regulatory Commission has issued a new tariff to Main Power Electricity Distribution Limited, the utility that succeeded Enugu Electricity Distribution Company for distribution of electricity in the state, reviewing electricity costs for Band A from 209 kilowatt per hour to 160 naira to kilowatts per hour, effective from August 1 of 2025. This was contained in the Commission's order number entitled Tariff Order for Main Power Electricity Distribution Limited 2025 and issued by the Commission at the weekend. Well, it said its decision was cost-reflective, insisting that tariffs must reflect power generation subsidies by the federal government for the benefit of electricity consumers. Meanwhile, the federal government and NEC have so far taken a cautious stance. Officials say they are observing the development while working to ensure coordination between federal and state regulators. Some experts have called for the creation of a harmonization council to set baseline service standards and financial principles that all states must follow, regardless of local tariff decisions. However, electricity industry observers believe the next few months will be critical in determining whether this new decentralized model can work. Much will depend on how well states design their regulatory frameworks, whether they attract capable investors, and how they enforce transparency and service delivery from power providers. Well, to weigh in on the growing tension in Nigeria's power sector as more states move to slash electricity tariffs following that new order from the Enugu Electricity Regulatory Commission, I am joined by Obonga. He is the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Electricity Consumers Advocacy Network. Thank you so much for being on the news tonight.
Thank you for having me, and good evening.
Good evening. So we saw Enugu release, its decision to slash tariffs, even for Band A customers. It says it is cost reflective. We have seen about 7 more states say they are going in that direction. However, there's been a pushback from GenCos and DISCOs. Consumers may be happy about power tariffs being reduced for them, but the power companies are definitely livid. Is this tariff cut a lifeline for the people or a ticking time bomb for the power companies? What do you think?
Well, thank you very much for that question. Yes, by the law and the provisions of Electricity Act 2023 that ceded the power or autonomy to subnationals, states, to manage, regulate electricity business in their various states. Mm-hmm. On that note, they have the right to do what they have done. But the question is Enugu State, or rather, how to call it, Enugu State Government, or Enugu Electricity Regulatory Commission, mm-hmm. which is an agency or a regulatory body put in place by the Enugu State Government to regulate the activities of Main Power Company mm-hmm. in Enugu State. Are they generating electricity? Do they have independent companies, generation companies that are generating electricity? Or they are depending on electricity generated by other companies that are not under the control of Enugu State Government?
Yeah.
Yes, they have main power to distribute electricity. And they entered into what a PPA, Power Purchase Agreement, from the GenCos, regulated by the parent regulator, Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. NEC, right. So now, there are gray areas here which have to be managed. Like somebody suggested, there should have to be a council set in place to harmonize, the activities of the states. It is not just enough to set up a regulatory agency in a state. One, you have not started, the states have not started generating. They don't have independent transmission grids. Mm-hmm. even if you have distribution companies put in place to do it for you.
So in other words, if you do not generate, you do not have the right to determine and put in place such measures as cutting tariffs.
You cannot, the state governments, or in this case, Enugu state government, cannot fix tariffs or reduce tariffs that, relying on subsidy payment by the federal government.
Oh, I see. So you do agree with the generators and the distributors, that's the GenCos and the DISCOs, that say we're already in debt, 5 trillion naira, I believe.
Yes,
if you do subsidy.
Yes.
If you do this, if you cut tariffs for that, then you have to pay for the shortfall. Perhaps is that a solution here, that the states go ahead and cut these tariffs and then take on the burden of paying for electricity tariffs?
Do they have the resources to do that to begin with?
That's a good question.
To begin with, do the states have resources to run independent generation companies, transmission and distribution, as allowed by the provisions
of
Part 1, Section 2 of the Act? They don't have the resources. And I believe in the short time and even medium time, they may not be able to do so. If at all, there will be very few states, maybe Lagos, maybe Rivers, and a few, 1 or 2 other states will be able because of their resource base. But now come to think of it. We are talking of EEROC, Enugu Electricity Regulatory Commission.
Yes. That
pulled out and was given license or the power authority according to the law to regulate electricity in their state. But they are coming out of a market that is reeling with huge debts. As of today, 5.2 trillion naira being owed by the federal government for subsidy payment. Although there's a huge question mark on that figure, because there have not been independent verification of this so-called subsidy. And if I may say a little bit on that subsidy, you recall in 2017, 2018, the federal government made available 701 billion through the CBN that as loan. It wasn't subsidy money, loan to the Nigerian bulk electricity trader. And that money was meant to guarantee payments for gas to gas suppliers when the GenCos were unable to pay. So another 600 billion. And if you add 701 billion to 600 and this thing, we are talking of 1.3 trillion as loan. And trust me, the CBN is still deducting these monies from the accounts of the DISCOs. So this is the money that form part of the 5.2 trillion subsidy we are talking about.
Okay.
So I believe we need to look into these things closely, particularly the issue of subsidies. And if states now that are pulling out, you have to go with the liabilities that went with. Is Enugu and the states, are they ready now to pay their own part of
the subsidy
claims?
Okay, interesting. I mean, with all of this on ground, because they're having questions as to why, the DISCOs and the GenCos will be pushing hard this much. But when you explain it this way, it sort of makes sense. But let me ask you, did the government put the cart before the horse with this Electoral Act of 2023? Did it envisage that this decentralization will be this chaotic and confusing? I mean, if states are beginning by cutting tariffs for electricity they do not generate, did that act, envisage this problem?
I am not sure that those who drafted that act or bill that later turned to an act having been signed by the president, and they thought, deeper and put a lot of factors into consideration. Some of us had warned earlier that, electricity should be devoid of politicking.
Yeah.
If anything that has to do with electricity, we should give it deeper thought, look at it very broadly, because there are gray areas in the very act. Right before the National Assembly, there's a bill to amend the Electricity Act 2023, as we speak. And already, the Conference of States that are now regulating electricity in their various states are kicking against it. Okay. That there's going to be a constitutional crisis.
Okay, let's pull up what Chijioke Okonkwo said, who is, I believe, the chairman of the Enugu NEC or ERC.
Electricity Regulatory Commission.
There you have it. It says he's explaining that the price is low due to some reasons, including the fact that the federal government is subsidizing electricity generation costs, which comes to a cost of about 45 naira out of the actual cost of 112 naira for Enugu State. That was how we came about the average tariff of 94 naira as cost-reflective tariff at our level as a subnational electricity market. So he's saying they've done the maths, and this is what it comes to. When you hear arguments like this, does it then make sense that Enugu and 7 other states might go this direction? Well,
Niger State is already, according to the announcement this evening, has already, I'm not their spokesperson, but we have been told that Niger State has already cut a reduced tariff in their state.
Yeah.
But the question is this. You are relying on the 45 naira subsidy paid by the federal government. And you say the cost reflective for Enugu State
is 94 naira.
No. 112 naira. And now they brought it down to 112
minus 45.
112 yes. Brought it down to 94 naira.
Yes.
And because of that, they are now fixing their Band A customers at 160 naira in place of 209 naira 50 kobo. Now, the 45 naira in question, who pays? Federal government. Do they have understanding with the federal government before they went into this? Or they unilaterally took a decision without informing the federal government, assuming that the federal government, and he now said somewhere in that what he said, Mr. Chijioke Okonkwo said, the chairman of Enugu Electricity Regulatory Commission, he said they are aware this tariff is not sustainable because if the federal government does anything,
it affects them.
It affects them.
Okay.
So you can see, I look at it as a gamble. There should be a council of men from the state, the federal, to harmonize and look more closely into this act, Electricity Act, and like what the National Assembly is doing. They should be stakeholders. They should reach out for consultation before these things are done properly.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Mr. Uket Obonga, who is the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Electricity Consumers Advocacy Network, for being on the news and sharing your thoughts on this matter.